For one, you're going to obtain a lot more if you become militant, just like the Arabs, just like your forefathers in the 1800s, and be willing to arrest and occupy governmental institutions until they agree to engage in basic, yes, I'm going to use the word reforms. But there are reforms and then there are reforms. What I'm talking about are real changes that will set in motion fundamental transformation of the system, which many on the left may poo-poo as being nothing more than window dressing, but let's take a minute to think about this before we reject it. Why not surround and occupy the three branches of government? Why don't we make sure that the Supreme Court justices cannot leave the premises, nor the congressman the Congress, nor the president the White House, and insist that nobody's going anywhere until the following are voted and passed on behalf of the people? Such as, take healthcare. Nobody likes the healthcare reforms. Why? Because they are a cruel joke perpetrated upon the American people. What we need to have is a single-payer system. For those of you that don't know what that means, it means socialized medicine. But what's socialized medicine? It's the medicine they offer in England, the medicine they offer in France, and so forth, which is extremely high quality. You only have to walk into any provider's facilities, whether it's a hospital or a doctor's office, get top-notch treatment, and walk out without having spent a dime. Then who pays for this? The rich, through taxes. Which is why we don't have this in the United States, because the rich have convinced the poor that paying taxes is a bad thing. Well, I'm sorry. Paying taxes when you're poor is a bad thing, but when you're rich, it's a necessity if you want to have a modern society. That's how this gets paid. What else should we be fighting for? How about quality free education at all levels? Free education is the cornerstone of an advanced society. We cannot have the current state of affairs where you have, on the one hand, the private institutions like Harvard, Princeton, Yale, which teach no more, no less in terms of quality and outcomes as, let's say, public institutions like state universities, because here you have a situation where the rich are going to go to the private institutions, which are really flags to indicate to others that these are our classmates. These are the people who are supposed to get the good jobs, versus all of us who have to go to the state system and then get the less desirable jobs, often jobs that don't even require a college education. That's fundamentally unfair. The solution should be to abolish private education at all levels. As long as you have a two-tier system of education, the poor will always be shortchanged. So, in addition to real free quality public health care, we should also have real quality free public education at all levels. No private educational institutions, which of course is the trend now because the rich understand that when you gut the education of the poor, you can control them much better. The other thing we should also be fighting for, and forcing these so-called politicians to pass, is a guarantee for housing. It is insane to have all these banks hold hundreds of thousands of housing units, that means apartments, it means houses, that are empty. And the reason they're empty is because these banks have foreclosed on the people that occupied them, most of whom were tricked into mortgages they could not understand. Why not take these homeless families, which are amongst the fastest growing homeless population, and house them in these empty units? So let's demand that every family, every individual is guaranteed housing in addition to education and healthcare coverage. And then finally, we should also guarantee the basics of life for every single person, such as what? Food, clothing, utilities, and so forth. Now you may say to yourself, this doesn't sound very radical, but it doesn't sound bad either. Well, guess what? Ask any intelligent person, anyone who has studied the topic, what this can lead to, and they will all tell you the same thing. When you have guaranteed these necessities for every single person, then fear disappears. Then people can be courageous. They can be able to take risks. When you are kept in fear because of want and poverty, you're not going to take the risks that you should be taking. And that's understandable psychologically. But if your belly is full, if you have a place to sleep that's not infested by cockroaches, if you are healthy, and if you're educated, then you are a real citizen that can engage in real action to defend their rights. And this is why these fundamentals of life in places like the United States and other Anglo-Saxon nations are constantly attacked for the poor. In conclusion, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to violate, in the spirit of civil disobedience, laws that were designed to keep you down. Do not be afraid to engage in acts of solidarity with people that you may not work with people that may not even look like you. Why? Because at the end of the day, as long as you get a paycheck, whether it's $1,000 a month, $100 a month, or $1 million a month, if you're getting a paycheck, by definition, you are a worker. Some better paid than others, but still, you are a worker. And as a worker, you're going to be far better off with these fundamental changes, regardless of your own personal ideology. It doesn't matter if you're on the far right as a libertarian, it doesn't matter if you're on the far left as a libertarian socialist, or right smack in the middle. As a human being, you have to acknowledge that being able to obtain an education, being able to have your healthcare needs met without having to sell your kidneys or your house to pay for it, having your food on the table for your children, these are things that will result in a population that will be in a far better position for those radical changes that we all aspire to, but in the meantime make life livable. But unless you're willing to also fight, and that means physically, you're not going to get much. Remember, nobody's going to listen to you unless they have to. But there are ways that we can get the attention of the power elite, and that's where we have to be willing to take real risks in order to get real outcomes. In solidarity, Dr. Asimakopoulos.